Hello and welcome back to another episode of Codicize. Today I am talking about Deno. Deny permissions. This is a new feature that came out in Deno 1.36. Something that I think you should learn, something that I think you should know about if you're going to be working with the Deno runtime. So let's get into it. If you've used Deno before, you would have interacted with the Permissions API, which gives you the ability to allow access to certain APIs within your script. This means you can allow list features like reading from the file system or making network requests. This is an important feature in Deno because Deno is secure by default. This means that a random script you've downloaded can't access the network, it can't make file requests, and it can't do anything else unless you give it the explicit permission to do that. As software engineers in the modern world, we need this secure by default behavior. We need to be able to prevent people from running scripts or jailbreaking out of the sandboxes that we've created for them. We want to prevent our code from being used by hackers to run features that we haven't given permission for. Deno's permission functionality becomes even more important when we start running scripts from developers that we don't know and that we don't have that trusted relationship with. If you download a Deno script from the internet, you can give explicit permissions to give it access to your network, file system, or anything else that you're working with. You can be sure that the script you're using is not sending data off to some other URL that you haven't given permission to. Allow permissions are great, but they do have some limitations. If you have a script that reads different files from your computer, you need to give access to each individual file or folder within your Deno script. This is very secure, but it can be very cumbersome. As of Deno 1.36, released on August 10th, 2023, developers using Deno now have access to the Deny Permissions API. This is exactly the same as the Allow Permissions, but the opposite. By using Deny Permissions, we can give access to our environment variables except for specific values that we don't want to use. For example, an AWS key that is only going to be used within the build pipeline. When using allow permissions, you would need to give access to each individual environment key or give access to all of them. By using the deny permissions, we can restrict certain keys that we don't want each script to be able to access. There is a risk with this though. When using an allow list, it is on the person running the code to give permission to each thing that they want to allow, each file, each folder. When using a deny list, there is a much greater risk that you forget to deny access to something that an attacker could then read or send a network request to. In cases where you've got, for example, a single domain that you're calling out to, it is still better to allow list that single domain. The deny list works really well when you have quite a large range of values that you're being okay with them accessing, but there are certain ones you want to restrict access to. For example, an environment variable or perhaps a passwords file within your project. Another important thing to keep in mind if you're new to Deno is that your script knows what flags it has been run with. This means that if you've got a deny list with explicit files or folders in there, the script can read and it can see what you're denying permission to. This might mean that you're saying, don't read out of my secrets.txt file, but then the script knows that there is a secrets text file that you don't want them to read out of. This might mean that there's another vector that they try and get into. They could also access things like libraries or other binaries that you have on your system, and they'll be able to get a much better sense of the file structure that your script is running within. So keep in mind this when you're denying things and consider whether the allow list is better for you. I always find the best way to learn is through experimentation. So let's take a quick look at these permissions in action. So here I have a simple script that reads the file hello text from the file system. When I run this script with no permissions, there's a warning that the script requires permissions I have not granted. If I select no, then my script will fail as it is unable to read the file. Next, I run the script with the allow read flag, and the contents of my text file is shown in the terminal. I can use a more explicit allow read flag with the file name and get the same result. Now I edit the script and try to access the passwords.txt file. When I provide the allow read permissions, I give access to this file even though I want to keep it private. Let's use the new deny permissions to solve this. When running the script, I can add deny read equals password.txt, and now when my script runs, I see it trying to read my passwords and I can deny that action. So you can see that the allow and deny permissions provide similar functionality, but in different ways, giving more flexibility to the scripts that we write and run. Overall, I think this is a great release from the Deno team and provides more flexibility to developers using the Deno runtime for their projects. You can read about these new permissions over at the Deno blog and the release notes for version 1.36, which I've added to the video description below. Thank you again for watching an episode of Codicize. I hope you enjoyed this quick look at the new Deno deny permissions flags and how you can use them in your work. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends all about it. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.